I just wanted to thank you for inviting me, Grandpa, to the service today. To the service today. Obviously, I'm not a churchgoer, I guess. I've been living a pretty rebellious lifestyle.
Well, don't worry about it, grandson. You know, the whole body of Christ has been praying for you. And I'm just so happy to see you here today.
I mean, I was in a pretty, I'm glad to hear that. Last week I was in a pretty dark place. I was picking up dates at Pinkberry.
Wow.
Trader Joe's was obviously closed, so I know what you're going to say there.
Well, it's all right. I know a couple people in Pinkberry.
I was kind of confused when you invited me. I thought today was Easter, so that's why I showed up looking like a fancy jelly bean.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know if you were a jelly bean or a bunny rabbit.
I really connected with the pastor's wife, Linda Thompson, though, with bright colors, so we really connected there. So I saw in the service today, it says the pastor's going to be preaching on embracing Christ. Well, can you explain that to me?
Embrace. I say embrace.
Say it. Say it again.
Embrace. I tell you, grandson, I've been around this church for about 50 years. I believe I was here before the pastor was even here. And if there's anything I can tell you a little bit about, it's a little bit about embrace. And when you think about the word embrace, I want you to visualize a couple things. Now, let's just say, grandson, you see a young lady in the hallway, okay?
Say it.
And then the young lady, she's single. And now you don't know her, though. You've seen her around. You don't know her, and I say no, I mean you don't know her like Adam knew Eve or anything like that. But you've seen her. You want to respect her. And if you want to greet her, you respect her, you do it with a side hug.
Okay.
You see the side hug? Now that side hug...
It's a church thing.
It's a
church hug.
Call it church hug, call it church thing, but what it is that some people embrace Christ that same way. They do it from a side view, the side hug. Did that help you out there, grandson? Did that help you out?
I think... Can I get a little more clarification? Do you have any more
let me see.
examples, Grandpa?
Oh, yeah, let me have a couple more in the noggin here. Okay, now think about it from this perspective, grandson. Some people embrace Christ from this way. Let's say you see a brother in the hallway. You know that brother. That brother know you. You say, hey, brother. And he say, hey. And then you look at each other and you say, hey, what's going on? You.
Grandpa, catch your breath. Catch your breath. I'm sorry.
I got a little bit excited on that. But embrace. Or if you see your brother, you simply go over to him and say, hey, brother. And he say, hey to you. Does that help you? Because some people embrace Christ even that way. As if they see a brother, they know him, they love him, but you know, they do it in that way. You understand what I'm saying? So tell me, that should have helped you by now, I would say so.
That definitely added some more clarity. I'm not really sure in the whole...
You still ain't getting it yet, grandson?
Not in the whole...
Are you really my grandson? Put your arm up against mine. Okay, I don't know if you're my grandson or not.
I'm like a young version of you.
Well, I'm just saying, grandson, because I would have gotten it by now, but if you ain't got it yet, I'm going to give you one more example.
Okay.
I want you to ponder on this one.
Okay.
I want you to meditate on this one. I want you to let it roll around in your mind a few times, grandson.
Okay.
And I want you to think on it.
Yeah.
You got it?
Got it, Grandpa.
Some people embrace Christ. Now, this is the most important way you embrace Christ. They're the most important way. Some people embrace Christ if they're smart, kind of sort of the way like I embrace your grandmother from time to time. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Forgive me, Lord. I'm sorry. It kind of brought me back to the old days with the grandmother. I'm sorry. Come back over here, boy. Get on back over here. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to mess you up.
The great exchange.
Hey, stop it.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to mess you up on that. Instead of me saying embrace your grandma, think of it this way.
I'll get saved right now just to get this image out of my head.
No. Listen. Some people embrace Christ, we'll say the family hug way.
Okay.
Where you see somebody you love, you know them, and you embrace them with love. You understand that, Grandpa?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry. Did I call you Grandpa? I'm sorry.
Grandpa, you're getting old.
I'm sorry. My mind is tripping out over it a little bit. So that should help you. If that don't help you, the Lord himself can't help you, Grandpa.
I think that's pretty clear. I think the service is starting. I'll ask you later.
We'll let the expert himself explain embrace then. Let's get on up out of here.
But have you ever been at a place where you've gone to hug somebody, but they didn't hug you back? It's kind of like what we'll just call, for lack of a better term, the fish hug. It's like what it is, you got this fish and you're trying to hug this fish, and when you go to hug this fish is just looking at you with that one eye. They're trying to hug this fish. And a lot of times what happens is people really act like that. But really, you go to hug somebody and that they're really not interested in being able to be hugging with you. I get a kick out of it, and I mean really all three of the different types of hugs that were illustrated here during our time of listening to Lavelle and Matt. All those three, really, I see people do that stuff all the time. But isn't it interesting that really from the beginning of time itself, God was a redeemer all the way back from the beginning. Redemption and salvation was always available to everyone, and it was available the same way. Now that messes up our theology in a lot of ways, but really, once you realize that God is really the same as He was yesterday, the same as He is today, and the same He'll be throughout eternity, it really begins to answer a lot of questions for you. It gets rid of a lot of guilt. It gets rid of a lot of shame. And so, how does it feel when someone doesn't hug you back? How many of you like it when people don't hug you back when you were trying to hug them? Because we're going to have a prayer line for you at the end of service. No, when you go to hug someone and they don't hug you back, I mean, it feels kind of really strange. But think of it from Christ's perspective, is that Jesus has been embracing us, or in the position of embrace since the beginning of time. And all He's been waiting for is one thing, and that is that you and I would be able to embrace Him back. In Matthew chapter 11, verses 28 and through 30 in the new NLT, it says, "Then Jesus said, He said, 'Come to me, all you who are weary and carry heavy burdens,' He said, 'and I will give you rest.'" Verse 29, He said, "Take my yoke upon you, let me teach you, because I'm humble and gentle." He said, "And then you'll find rest for your souls." Go back to verse 28. He said, "Now, then Jesus said, 'Come to me, all you who are weary.'" One of the things that has become evident to me throughout time, and this is true, when a Christian is like a 2-year-old Christian, those people don't have the right to be weary yet. You don't get the right to be weary till after about 20. When you're a Christian for 20 years, you start having to make a decision about your future and what you're going to do and how you're going to live this thing out. And is this the way that you're going to be for the rest of your lives? And are you willing to lay it down for the things that you say that you believe? Because unless you do that, you can't receive what Jesus has for you. Let me read you something. Imagine that you're in the middle of a river that's drowning and you're going down for the 3rd time. And you see someone on the bank. You don't pray a little prayer that what they would do is that they would come into the water as you're going down for the 3rd time and that they would come and save you. Actually, when you pray, "Help me!" And what happens is that this person jumps into the water and they come over and they save you. And when they save you and they drag you onto the bank so that you could have some more life, and they tell you, "Let me go and get some blankets," and they get some blankets, they dry you off, they make sure that you're not carrying more water than you need to be carrying, and it's cold, and they say, "Well, let me put you in my car, let me take you with me, come to my home." And and let's get warm and let's fix you up and let's get your clothes dried. And after they do all of those things, as you're talking to them, and they say, well, now let me take you home. I'll take you home now. So you get in the car and they take you home, and what the fella does is he turns around and he hands you a piece of paper. And he said, and now you can come back. You know the way. You can come back anytime that you want. Please come back. Just because that person saved you out of that water doesn't mean that you know them. Just because you cried out in a time of desperation doesn't mean that you know the person. Just because you held on to them while they were taking you out of the place of death does not mean that you have embraced them. It means that you held on so you wouldn't die. But you didn't embrace them. The same thing happens to people. What happens to us is that we get to a place to where, truthfully, although Jesus saved us, and although we've got a great story, and although we think of all of the things that Jesus had done for us, and really we could stand up and we could tell anyone all about that, even though that is really true, yet many don't know Him. They had an initial introduction, but when you interface with them, you're not interfacing with a believer. It's almost like you're interfacing with snakes. Remember what Jesus said. He said, you brood of vipers, how shall you, being evil, speak good things? He said, for out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And if you remember, the last time that we were together, I talked to you about words. Just words. I gave you the laws of communication, the things that hurt people, the things that you need in relationship, the things that other people need in having a relationship with us. I told you about what you should say, how you should talk, who you should confront, who you should support. We talked about that. But Jesus turned and said to these people who had everything, it really looked like they got the uniform, like they'd been to school, like they had it all together. And when they got the uniform, they began to try to live by a book, but it wasn't living by a book from the heart of what was given to them. They were living by a book out of their own meanness of having only been saved, but never really come into a place where they were influenced by the one who saved them. I know a lot of people, as you are aware. And truthfully, I wish that some people were kinder. The Apostle Paul said something. Here he was a guy that when he was in people's presence, they said that he was weak. Well, really, it wasn't at all. It was the fact that when he got in front of people, God's care for those individuals became involved. And when God's care for the individuals became involved, he just said, maybe next time. They said to him, you're such a weakling. Your letters are strong, but your presence is weak. He said, I can be as strong in my presence, in your presence, as I can be with my letters that I send to you. But these were the words he said. In Philippians chapter 3, verse number 9, he said this, that I may be found in him, not having mine own righteousness, which is from the law, which is based upon my performance. He said, but that which is through faith in Christ, the righteousness of God which comes by faith. He said, for my purpose, verse 10, for my purpose is that I may know him Now, what type of life do you think an individual would display if what their purpose was to know God? The power that flows out of His resurrection, to fellowship His sufferings, and to be made conformable to the image of His death. Let's take a look at, let me just hold that right there. Just go back to Jeremiah 9 and just follow me, please. Everything that you ever do inside your life, you must do because of your love for God, and people will always become the benefactors of what you do. Jeremiah said it like this. He said, in the Message Bible, he said, God's message. He said, don't let the wise brag of their wisdom. Don't let heroes brag of their exploits. Don't let the rich brag of their riches. He said, but if you brag on this and this alone, that you understand and know me, that I'm God. If you're going to boast this, that He is God and He acts in loyal love. Loyal love. He said, I do what's right and I set things right and fair, and I delight in those who do the same. He said, if you're ever going to boast in this, that you understand and that you know me. When you relate to others, you relate to them from the perspective that you know God. In the book of John chapter 14, verse number 23, Jesus must be for us in our embracing Christ. Over these next months, I'm going to be talking to you about a 180. Doing a 180. A 180 turnaround in your life, in your finances, in your family, in your marriage. Turning things around. Don't do a 360. A lot of times what people do is they do a 360, and a 360 just means that you passed up 180 a little while ago and everyone else has been watching your symptoms ever since. Well, you know, he's getting better. Well, now he's getting worse. No, I think she's doing okay. Well, then she doesn't do so good. Jesus said this in John 14:23. She said to him, if a man love me, he'll keep my words. He said, and my Father will love him. He said, if you love me, if you've embraced me, he said, what you'll do is you'll keep my words. He said, and my Father will love him, and we will come to him, and we'll make our home with him. I'll be the guest of honor in his house if he embraces me. See, a lot of times I think what we do is that we begin to embrace things other than him. It's your place of employment where you work. That place of employment is the place where God gives you the opportunity to work out your relationship with him. It's not that God actually says, well, it's the place that you work. No, that's the place that God gives you so that you can work out your relationship with him when it comes to that place. If I work at an unrighteous place, I'm actually there, and I'm coming to a point where God is changing me to have to be able to submit to unrighteousness until that unrighteousness becomes illegal. There's a difference in between unrighteousness and illegality. Illegality is what encumbers you and could place you in prison if in fact you don't move away from something. Do you understand that part? That's illegality. But unrighteousness, just because a guy is mean. I was talking to a fellow on the phone the other day, and he was he was telling me about this miraculous turnaround in a marriage that he had just experienced. He said that this woman, she got saved. Both her and her husband were real partiers. They had a child. And what happened was that when she got saved, she got saved. From that moment on, that man was on a quest. He was on an anger quest. He was on a quest to be able to to check and see if anything in her life showed of her past performance. So he pushed her, and he pushed her, and he pushed her. And after a year, he actually got saved the day his little boy did. Because even in the midst of marriage. Now, I didn't say, and I get it, I'm intrigued where people are not necessarily in danger, they're just in dislike. Well, I don't like this. I don't think that this is really good. I don't like that. And what they do is they decide that they're going to get a divorce because there was something that they didn't like. They didn't like it. And what they don't really realize is that they're front-loading their life. Now remember, you always have a choice. You have either a front load or a rear load, right? When you front load, like your mortgage on your house, your mortgage on your house is front loaded with your interest. So you pay all your interest before you ever really get to, almost all your interest before you ever get to pay any of your principal. Now, how quickly do you think that people would pay off their homes if they front loaded the principal? Isn't that true? Yes. Whatever, at the moment that you choose pleasure over purpose, at that moment when you choose pleasure over purpose, what you will do is that you immediately are attempting to fill the loader on your piece of heavy equipment. You're trying to fill it at that second. The problem that you have is that, remember, even in divorce, you have a tremendous amount of consequence that you will face. There is never anyone that walks away scot-free from a divorce. Even if you get free, all you need to do is watch your kids, because your kids are still half of the spouse that you wanted to get rid of. So the 23, and some of you in here that have had the unfortunate experience of that, you understand exactly what I'm saying. So I want you to realize that, is that your place of employment, your marriage, a relationship with a friend, wherever you want it to be, or wherever you want to set up that camp, that is the place where God gets to work out of you the things that never should have been there. The reason why that older people end up alone in life, in many cases, is not because not because their friends are all dead. It's because they came to a place where there was an impasse that they couldn't work through. And in embracing Christ, as you get older in the Lord, that relationship with Jesus is more committed, but yet more difficult. At first, you made every decision that you made because you loved Him. Now you make every decision that you make because you love Him. But the love that you have now is different than the feelings that you had that you called love years ago. In the book of Revelation, chapter 3, verse number 20, Jesus is still looking for the embrace of the church. He said, behold, I stand at the door and knock. He said, and if any man hear my voice and opens the door, he said, I will come in to him and sit down with him and have supper with him. If any man will hear my voice and open the door. If any person will hear his voice and open the door, he'll come in. Opening the door, he will come in. But there are people in life at times that they're not ready. Somebody says, you know, I'm not ready. But let's kind of understand the reason why people say that they're not ready. In the book of Mark, chapter 10, beginning with verse number 17, going all the way from 17 to 22, and notice there how it says it in the Message Bible. He said, he went out into the street. A man came running up and greeted him with great reverence and asked, good teacher. Greeted him with great reverence and said, good teacher, what must I do that I may inherit eternal life? 18, Jesus said, why are you calling me good? He said, there's none good. Can you imagine that Jesus actually said that? Now, for a moment we think, you know, he's got to be kidding. But let's think what he said. He said, don't call me good. There's only one good. (19) He said, you know the commandments. He said, don't murder. He said, don't commit adultery. Don't steal. You know, don't lie. Don't cheat. Honor your father and your mother. Notice what he says. He said, here, teacher, I have from my youth. I've kept them all. I've done all this. Now, did Jesus lie to him? I don't think so.
If you are in the Tinley Park area, we would love for you to join us at any of our services. We have a 5 p.m. service on Saturdays, and on Sundays we have a 9:30 a.m. and 5 p.m. service. We also have a midweek service on Wednesdays at 7:15 p.m. With over 30 years of ministry, FHC has something for everyone. To find out more about FHC, like us on Facebook or go to our website, fhclife.org, or call our office at 708-614-6000. We look forward to seeing you soon.